Yes, scripture lesson this morning is taken from the book of Micah, familiar verse, chapter 6, verses 6 to 8. With what shall I come before the Lord and bow myself down before God on high? Shall I come before him with burnt offerings, with calves a year old? Will the Lord be pleased with thousands of rams and 10,000s of rivers of oil? Shall I give my firstborn for my transgressions, the fruit of my body for the sin of my soul? He has told you, O mortal, what is good, and what does the Lord require of you, but to do justice, to love kindness, and to walk humbly with your God.
Thank you, choir. A nice message before our gospel lesson this morning, which is found in the gospel according to Matthew in the 5th chapter. And in this, when you hear blessed, that also means happy. Happy are those. And happiness in the way, as Lori said, happiness in a way that only God can give. So hear now this lesson from Matthew. When Jesus saw the crowds, he went up to the mountain, and after he sat down, his disciples came to him. Then he began to speak and taught them, saying, Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will receive mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. And blessed are you when people revile you and persecute you and utter all kinds of evil against you falsely on my account. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward is great in heaven. For in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you. May God add a blessing to the reading of God's holy word. And at this time, I'd like to invite Janet forward to offer the message. Welcome, Janet.
Morning. What a pleasure to be here this morning. and happy anniversary. 20 years ago this year, Zwingli was a founding member with Keystone Opportunity Center of the Interfaith Hospitality Network, a network which you know provides shelter to persons in our community who are homeless. Not only does it provide shelter, but it provides a warm welcome by people from your own congregation who open your lives, provide food, and provide companionship to people who are actually spending the night in your congregation. You've been a faithful member of the Interfaith Hospitality Network since you helped found it 20 years ago. Every year we can count on you to open your lives and your church. Zwingli is a strong and prophetic reminder of what it means to be a faith community, a reminder that the faith community has a crucial and timely role in reaching out to the vulnerable among us, seeing the face of God in the faces of our neighbor. I'd like to share this morning some stories of our partnership, our current partnership, and some thoughts about our future partnership, and leave you with a feeling of the crucial relevance of our collaborative welcome and service to the vulnerable in our community today. I'm a former board member for Keystone Opportunity Center, and together with another board member, John Lyon, we formed the co-transition team for Keystone as they search for a new executive director, since Executive Director Rich Ashley retired in December. I'm also your neighbor. I live a couple of blocks over on West Broad Street with my husband. We're members of Plains Mennonite Church in Hatfield. After working for a number of years with the Mennonite Central Committee in Jamaica, we returned to this area 18 years ago with our two daughters. My husband worked as a construction director for Habitat for Humanity in Philadelphia. I oversaw the refugee programs at Lutheran Children and Family Service. It was in that role in 1998, as supervisor of the refugee programs, that I first became aware of what was happening in my own community and the powerful work of Indian Valley Opportunity Center in welcoming the stranger and providing the most vulnerable among us, helping them to become full participating members of our community. Of course, IVOC was started by Zwingli and others in the faith community, who first made, again, that prophetic commitment to welcome the stranger in turbulent times in the 70s and 80s, sponsored refugees fleeing from Vietnam. And it was the faith community that saw the need for a service that would help people not to just be helped as refugees, but to become fully integrated into the fabric of our community. The path to community integration provided by IVOC was three-pronged: helping people to learn the language of our community, legal services, helping people to go on the pathway to move from refugee to citizen, helping people take the civics test, and community case management, helping people to navigate our multitude of systems. Persons who fled Vietnam 40 years ago and their children are now as rooted in the fabric of our community as those of us who arrived here 100 years ago. And Keystone Opportunity Center continues the work today, educating, encouraging, and empowering community members in need to become self-sufficient, participating members in the fabric of our community. Say that again. We are educating in collaboration with the faith community and the other volunteers. We're educating, encouraging, and empowering community members in need to become self-sufficient. What is not provided in our mission statement is our method. We provide professional, strengths-based social services to the vulnerable in our midst in close collaboration with our community and faith-based partners. Zwingli is a reminder to us that the faith community has a crucial and at times prophetic role to remind us to reach out to the vulnerable among us, to see the face of God on the faces of our neighbor. Take a look at our recent history of welcoming newcomers together. We at Keystone Opportunity Center, IVOC, Indian Valley Housing Corporation, we've continued to serve together vulnerable refugees, including the youth from South Sudan, commonly known as the Lost Boys. These are the 17,000 youth that trekked when their villages were bombed in '89. They trekked to Ethiopia, got chased out, wound up in Kakuma, Kenya, and there they sat for 8 years because no country would take them in. Nobody wanted them in their country. They call that year that they trekked, some of them call it the year we ate leaves. It was a horrific experience. Ultimately, advocates in our country highlighted this population to our government, and our government made a commitment to bring in 6,000 of them, of which about 40 came to this community, welcomed by the local congregations, and served by Keystone Opportunity Center through English classes, community case management, food pantry. More recently, refugees have come to Souderton in our region in smaller numbers from the Congo, a country where ethnic violence has taken the particularly horrific form of violence against women. Other people are coming to our communities for many other reasons. People are seeking employment. There's a large population of Coptic Christians coming from Egypt who are building a new congregation in Hatfield. People from China. Many reasons why people are coming into our midst. Assisted by the professional services in Keystone Opportunity Center in partnership with the faith community, not be just clients, but to become fully integrated into the fabric of our communities. English classes, family literacy, civics, community case management, food pantry, and also our continuum of much needed housing services, everything from emergency shelter through our Family Promise Interfaith Hospitality Network, to transitional housing, to permanent supportive housing, and to affordable housing. How sad and how ironic that as we celebrate Keystone's partnership with Zwingli today, that last week, that with a stroke of the pen, we have stopped refugees coming into the country for at least 4 months, and we've stopped persons fleeing Syria, Iraq, Sudan, and other countries indefinitely. What a reminder that the faith community has a crucial and timely role in reaching out to the vulnerable among us at times like this, seeing the face of God on our neighbors. Beyond newcomers, we have embraced together the vulnerable in our midst in many ways, whether they are from our area, whether they are within our congregation, whether they are in the wider region. Our continuum of services continues to see the face of Christ on our neighbor. I love the scriptures chosen for the day. What does the Lord require of me? But also the Beatitudes. When Jesus saw the crowds, he went up to the mountain, and after he sat down, his disciples came to him. He began to speak and taught them, saying, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled." I'd like to go before the Beatitudes and look at what was happening right in the passage prior to Matthew 5. Matthew 4 tells us that right before the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus' fame had spread throughout Syria, and they brought him all the sick and those who were afflicted with various diseases and pains, demoniacs, epileptics, paralytics, and he cured them. And great crowds followed him from the Galilee, the Decapolis, Jerusalem, and Judea, and beyond the Jordan. Speaking as a follower of Jesus, I wonder how those disciples felt. I'm guessing that, not being social service professionals, they were starting to feel overwhelmed and exhausted and really tired of all those sick people, wondering why Jesus was helping people throughout Syria and even beyond the Jordan. It left that in the scripture. I'm wondering if the disciples grumbled a little about the number of people that still needed help. Didn't Jesus realize that the more he served people that weren't from their community, the more people would come and it would be never ending? Were the disciples resentful about the amount of time it took to trudge around and help those people? Did they wonder why Jesus wasn't spending focused and quality time with them, who weren't like those sick people? Were the disciples eager to have Jesus to themselves in their own mountaintop experience to talk about spiritual things? Perhaps in the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus was saying to the disciples, or maybe even to us, resist the temptation to see the vulnerable in your midst as them, or to see our community in terms of us and them, us healthy people, us spiritual people, us Christian people, those sick people, those refugees, etc. Perhaps Jesus was really talking about living a life that's welcoming and engaging and embracing our neighbors, both close at hand, as well as those suffering and on the other side of the Jordan as part of our community. What a fitting message as we celebrate our partnership with Zwingli and KOC. When you feed the families at the KOC Interfaith Hospitality Network, when you give them shelter, you're not simply providing a service. You're welcoming people into the intimacy of your fellowship. And our partnership today continues with the shelter, but also with the continuum of other ways we reach out to our community together. You'll hear more in the adult Sunday school class about our community case management program, started by the faith community through the Indian Valley Ministerium, funded by donations from Zwingli and other congregations. The community case manager is not publicly funded. We take referrals from congregations, from others in our community. We provide a professional case manager that has a coordinated response, referrals, and service to our community members in need. Led by the faith community, we've created a coordinated service so that somebody who's vulnerable and doesn't know where to turn doesn't just go from church to church or service to service, but has a one-stop shop where we can work with you, the other congregations, but primarily with the person that's sitting in front of us to make sure they have what it takes to become a fully integrated member of our community. Our food pantry, of course, serves people who are vulnerable from food shortages, and that's many of us, both people that are traditionally vulnerable, but also people who have lost their jobs, who have, through sickness or through a variety of life circumstances, don't have enough food to make ends meet. Congregations like yours bring us food, provide money so that we can purchase food that we don't have donated, but what a tremendous outpouring of support from the community over the years has supported that food pantry. We have our continuum of adult education services, which are moving more into workforce development, but still have our English as a second language, family literacy that works with parents and children and teaches parents how to teach their children. We have our GED and high school equivalency classes. We coordinate community volunteers to tutor people. And may I brag, our family literacy just got word from the state that we had the highest outcomes in the state. So not only are we providing good services in collaboration with the community and the congregations, but we're providing excellent services. Our continuum of housing, since the joining together of Indian Valley Housing Corporation, solves a tremendous need for people who have jobs here or are living here but can't afford the rents. So there's a continuum of those services, from the emergency shelter to the supported housing and to connections to market rate rental properties. Future trends will include more focused perspective on workforce development. All of our education classes have a workforce development component. How to increase the income that people have in order to become self-sufficient. We're moving away from transitional housing to concentrate more on permanent supportive housing for people that may have needed transitional housing in the past. And we're waiting to see what will be the result of our national policies on serving the vulnerable in our midst. Zwingli is a reminder to us that the faith community has a crucial and at times prophetic role to remind us to reach out to the vulnerable among us, to see the face of God in the faces of our neighbors. Happy anniversary, and may God bless you richly as we journey together.